Welcome to Charter California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. We begin our program with Don Knabe. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County. You're actually the chair right now.
Absolutely.
Congratulations,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
I don't know if thanking, congratulations or condolences.
Exactly. I want to speak with you about an issue that has surfaced recently in Los Angeles County, and it deals with the seal of the county. And about 10 years ago, there had been a decision to remove a cross from the seal. There had been a threat of litigation. The cross was removed, but recently on a 3-2 vote, the Board of Supervisors decided to bring the cross back to the seal. You were in that 3-2 majority. I want to talk to you about how did this issue even come to be? You know, lots going on in the county. Why is now the time that we're talking about the cross?
Well, I mean, I think why is now the time? I think if you go back in history 10 years ago, the action was taken without just it was a letter, a simple letter from the ACLU threatening a lawsuit against the county of Los Angeles. Historically, Kenny Hahn had put that seal together and meant a lot of different things, and it wasn't to highlight one religion over another. It had the cross, and it was one of 14 icons on the seal. So anyway, on a 3-2 vote, it was removed without even going through a lawsuit. We've been trying to get it back on the seal. So historically, what's transpired, it is no longer an absolute. When it came back on the new seal that we created, it's not as a standalone icon, it's part of the mission. When they put the new mission on there after the earthquake, the cross fell off, and so it's really to put the historical significance. I mean, the original, once they took the cross off, put the new,
for a time. Well,
it looked like a back end of a Walmart. I mean, the mission. I mean, it really is a mission.
For a time, the cross actually wasn't on the mission. It had been fallen, and then it was stolen, and so it went through a few permutations. It's back on. The cross actually on the mission in 2009. But let's just play this out, because look, it's undeniable that the cross represents one specific religion, and that religion being Christianity. It's also undeniable that the missionaries, who were Christians, Catholics, came and developed this region. So when you have those two competing elements, what makes you decide to come down on the side of including the cross when it does depict one specific religion?
Well, I don't look at it like one specific religion. I look at it as from a historical perspective. To deny the history of Los Angeles County and its 150-plus year history, to say that it didn't exist. If you're going to have the mission, then the mission should be historically correct. Whether it was designed originally, I don't know what Kenny Hahn, I know what he thought about it as it related to the mission. And so here you have a situation where you're really just sort of recreating history. And lawsuit, maybe. I mean, with Los Angeles County, it's sort of like take a number. I mean, somebody's always suing us. And again, it's not to go back and rip every new seal off. I mean, it's from this point forward, as the new production times come in, then, so it'll be no new money off the shelf like it was. Money wasn't an issue back when they removed it and created a new seal. And it's no longer an issue today, because we said from going forward not to go back and spend all the money like the others did when they took it off.
But given the likelihood there will be a lawsuit, I mean, as I'm sure you know, in Riverside there is that beautiful cross on the mountain, but that
isolated by itself.
But what ultimately happened was the city of Riverside had to give up that land and sell that little small piece of land.
Different story, different issue. Now the courts have ruled differently in the last 10 years that it can be part of a display. It's not the standalone issue. This cross will not be standalone, won't be over the Hollywood Bowl. It will be on a mission. And the likelihood, our county council indicated that we would prevail. So it's not, because it's not a standalone. It's one of many. You're talking about it, others are talking about it, but we've got other icons on there representing the history of Los Angeles County.
Okay, let's shift gears if we may. Another controversy has befallen on this county, and that was the shocking, surprising resignation of Sheriff Lee Baca. Retirement. I appreciate the correction.
Well, I mean, there is a difference.
Is there, though?
Oh, absolutely.
Explain.
When you retire, you retire because you're eligible to retire. When you resign, and just walk away from the job. So he was eligible for retirement many years ago. Obviously, he's been with the county some 48 years. But beside all that,
Right.
whether it's resignation, retirement, it was a shocking news to all of us. I had talked to him on the weekend prior to his announcement about other issues, and there was no conversation. I got the call the Monday night, actually,
Right.
the BCS championship,
Right.
where he indicated to me, I mean, just out of the blue, it came, and then was, as chair of the board, I got the first call. But the point being, I was just flabbergasted.
I think his decision to opt against running, not that surprising. Many think he would have won if he did, but be that as it may. But to leave early, I think, was more of a shock to the system. Is that fair?
Well, it's a shock to the system. What I appreciated is that he left early enough so that allows the election process to move forward appropriately.
No doubt.
In other words, when the filing period opens here in a few weeks and then it closes, had he waited to the last minute, there's an extension
Right.
of 5 days. Then you would have 5 days for people to scatter. This way, it can be a very thoughtful process. We can get good candidates, quality candidates, and move forward with a good election.
The board will need to appoint a successor. Is that correct?
Well, it's twofold. I mean, two things happen. Under the charter, if in the resignation or retirement of a sitting sheriff, the undersheriff would take over should we not appoint. Okay. However, I think the board's inclined to appoint an interim, someone to fill out the term from February 1st through
whatever,
first
yeah.
Monday in December,
Right.
which is the rest of this term. Someone that's not going to be a candidate. At least at this point, there's consensus being, hey, we've got enough issues. We got to deal with the jail commission. We have to deal with the ongoing operation of a sheriff's department, the largest in the country. And so we need someone that can focus on that, not someone that tries to focus on it and then has to answer all the questions about running for office. So clearly, this is a different scenario than, say, back in the 80s with Sherm Block,
Right.
when Peter Pitch is resigning. They appointed Block so that he'd become the next sheriff.
Right.
This is a swirl of controversy, so we think it's better because, at the end of the day, there's just a few bad apples in this department. And there's a lot of men and women out there that are doing their jobs, integrity,
So given
honest.
there was only a few bad apples, why should Mr. Baca had to have, some would argue, be pushed out?
Who pushed him out? We didn't. The
That-
board,
that-
I mean,
it's
keep
true.
in mind, the media's try to connect the dots and make stories. We had no conversations
That is
with
true.
him.
That
Not
is a
one
true
member of the
statement.
board about it. The only public comment was Supervisor Molina said he should retire and move on
Right.
and let us get a new sheriff. But that was a public conversation. That was
Right.
not private. So the board has had no conversations about, Sheriff Baca,
Right.
you should leave or not
So
leave.
it begs the question.
He's elected. He's
Right.
elected official.
And that begs the question. It becomes very challenging. I mean, the county sets the sheriff's budget, yet the county, as you said, he's an independent official. And so if there are problems in the department, the Board of Supervisors, their power is limited.
Well, it's limited. I mean, again, I know you're right. I mean, he's a countywide elected official, but we do control his budget. We do take responsibility for lawsuits and all those kinds of things. So we do get impacted. So on the budget side, it always puts us in a precarious position. We can say, Sheriff, if you're not going to do what we say you're going to do, then we're going to pull your budget. Well, you can't do that because you still have the law enforcement responsibilities of the largest county in America. So, I mean, it puts us in a precarious position. Sheriff Baca is no different than Sheriff Block was. You give him a pocket full of money, and they say you spend it on this, and then all of a sudden you find out it's been spent on this. So you're right. We have limited day-to-day operational opportunities with the sheriff, but we've always had good working relationships.
You've gone on the record and you have endorsed a candidate for that position. His name is Jim McDonnell. He happens to be the police chief currently in Long Beach, a city which you represent. We are in Long Beach today. What made you decide to come out so early in favor of Mr. McDonnell?
Well, first of all, Jimmy was almost
Yes.
the LAPD chief.
That is true.
And Antonio picked Charlie Beck over Jim McDonnell. At that particular point in time, I know Jimmy wasn't sure what he's going to do next. The opening happened here in the city of Long Beach. I, recommended Jim McDonnell to the city of Long Beach because I was hired. I've known him for over 25 years. He has an incredible management style.
Hopefully we'll get him on the program. He is Don Knabe, chair of the Board of Supervisors in LA County. When we come back, we'll be speaking with the vice mayor of Long Beach, Robert Garcia. It's Charter California edition. Charter California edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by the Vice Mayor of the city of Long Beach. His name is Robert Garcia. He is also a candidate for mayor of that city. That election will be held in April. That's when the primary is. I want to speak with you about one part of the Southland that many feel as if completely neglected, and that is the Los Angeles River. And when you say Los Angeles, it's a bit of a misnomer because the LA River starts way up in the tip of the San Fernando Valley and comes all the way down to beautiful Long Beach.
Ends in Long Beach,
right?
Absolutely.
So talk to us about the history of the river. Give us some background.
Well, I mean, as we all know, the Los Angeles River has really been developed over time throughout the whole county.
Right.
People don't realize that everything that happens upstream and the river goes through so many cities affects Long Beach. At the end of the day, it all dumps out into our ocean, over by the port, onto our shoreline. And so the discussion that's happening right now about the LA River and restoration and cleanup and really revitalizing that as a public resource, I think is a really great discussion for the region and especially for Long Beach.
Because as we know, in the 30s and 40s, the river was actually channelized because there was some serious flooding damage that was done. And so, query whether it needed to be so dramatically channelized by concrete. But now there are discussions through LA City, the Army Corps of Engineers, the city of Long Beach, that maybe we can look at this in a different way. Maybe the river doesn't need to be our backyard anymore. It can be our front yard.
Right, absolutely. And I think it starts actually with what Mayor Garcia is doing in Los Angeles. I think Mayor Garcia has laid out a real clear vision and plan about what the LA River should look like through LA. He's been advocating in DC and across the country about river restoration, getting the Army Corps and the feds to be involved with a funding model. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was part of a group that toured with the city of Los Angeles and others looking at the southern stretch of the river, the Long Beach portion of the river, and we have incredible opportunity down here for restoration, for recreation activity. We have both parts that have been obviously had the cement bottom, but we also have soft bottom portions in Long Beach as well. And so there's opportunities for wetlands restoration. There's opportunities for some really positive development along the river, even homes or really great urban lifestyle.
And if you think about some cities that have turned their rivers into their front yards, have revitalized. I mean, in Korea they did that. I think in
San Antonio,
exactly. I mean, it has been done, but there needs to be a commitment. I know that before the recession, there seemed to have been some momentum building behind LA River restoration. Former Councilman Ed Reyes, you may know him, of Los Angeles, was a huge proponent of that. But when the recession hit, distractions occurred. And so are we back on track with focusing on restoring the LA River?
100%. I actually think restoration and the idea of restoration is more active and alive today than it has been any time in recent history. I think there's a lot of activists that are engaged. I think you have the political forces have kind of aligned. I think you have both Long Beach and Los Angeles invested. Long Beach is going through a river master plan review of what we already have and what else we can do in the future. We're doing tours. There's more talk and activity than there has been in a long time. And we've done some things, for example, the Shoemaker Bridge, which is the connection from the 710 to Long Beach. That is going to be replaced when the 710 project is complete. And I authored a motion to, instead of tearing that bridge down, to adaptively reuse the bridge. So we can actually use it for a park and actually do have a park that overlays the river. So some really exciting things happening in downtown because of the river.
Are all entities, all governmental entities up and down the river on the same page on this?
Well, I think most are. I mean, I think you have the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, you have Long Beach, and you have some also smaller municipalities. But I think everyone wants to see restoration. The idea really is a funding issue. I mean, we can draw real nice designs all day long, but if we don't get the funding and the support from the federal government, then we're not going to have a project.
Because in the final analysis, the Army Corps of Engineers has to be, they need to sign on the dotted line.
The Army Corps will have to make will sign on the dotted line, and Congress will have to appropriate money. So there is that piece.
Some has been appropriated, is that right?
There has been some money that's been appropriated, but at the end of the day, this could be, we're talking about possibly, depending on the scope, a $1 billion project. And so there is, remember, this river is extremely long. It goes from up and down the county. And so there's a lot of effort that needs to be made there, but I think it's an exciting project.
In the places where there has been restoration, I've seen some of them near downtown Los Angeles, in parts of the San Fernando Valley, absolutely majestic. I mean, so many people don't even realize how beautiful the river can be and how it can play a part in the way we live and not be this entity that we push to the side.
Absolutely. I mean, in Long Beach, we're looking right now, we've done some wetlands restoration along the river, we've done cleanups. We're talking about doing possibly some small recreation activities like kayaking in small portions of it. And we're looking at development. As the 710 goes through redevelopment, as we redevelop downtown Long Beach and the parkways along the river, we're going to look at ways that we can create some really great activities. We want to green the river as much as possible.
Before focus was placed back on the river often was a place of crime. Right. Which was so very frustrating for many. That has vanished in a lot of ways. What has also vanished are crime rates in Long Beach. It's quite stunning to read the statistics. I know that you chair the City of Long Beach's Public Safety Committee. Sir, this is quite a headline. Long Beach crime statistics for 2013 show lowest violent crime numbers in 41 years.
Absolutely.
How in God's name did that happen?
Well, first of all, I think you have to give credit to the men and women of the Long Beach Police Department. I think we have an incredible department. We have a great chief. And they've done incredible work with the resources that we have. Long Beach has gone recently through the worst kind of economic recession that the city had been in a long time, as much of the country did.
And many officers, did you have formal layoffs of the
No, we had
or attrition?
We had attrition and limited positions. We had to make the department leaner, but also we made the department, I think, in a lot of ways more efficient. And I think what you saw was a combination of great police work, great community policing. You saw the Parks and Recreation program investing in programs like summer programs for youth after school. You saw programs to help the poor in place. And so all of these things kind of led, I think, to this really great number. And Long Beach is going to continue to get safer.
What can be done to keep this momentum? Because when you look at crime, it's so hard to know why crime dips. I mean, traditionally we had thought in bad times crime would spike. During this past recession, that didn't happen. Why it didn't happen? Maybe more video games are keeping people inside. But something's working. So what do you do to keep that momentum going?
Well, I think a few things. One, I think the state has got to get really serious about providing resources for cities as they go through this whole program of essentially redistributing those that have been incarcerated in jails and letting them out. I'm a big believer that certainly we should be reforming our prison system, but as we release prisoners now earlier than before, there's no resources for cities. And so if the state does not get serious about giving the cities the ability to reintegrate these men and women back into society the right way, with training, with workforce development, education.
It's interesting you mention that.
That's important.
I know it's not a city issue, but obviously in the county there's a lot of consternation about prison realignment.
Exactly.
And so the question becomes, with the state under a federal court order to contract its prison population, the governor is trying to push a plan whereby they will not be forced to further contract and spend more money on rehab programs. And if that happens, that allows county, therefore cities, to try to work to reintegrate the prior incarcerated into society, because in the final analysis, I mean, if they've committed a crime that's less than heinous, they're going to be put back on the street. Exactly
right. And so that, to us, I think is the number one thing that we're looking at right now is that issue. I think we also want to continue moving the city forward. I mean, take downtown, which used to be an area of high crime. I mean, downtown is completely changing. And you have household income is up by over 50% just in the last decade alone. You have new people moving in. You have a great diversity there. You have crime at its lowest level probably in 40, 50 years in the downtown as well. And so what we've done is we've created a center for crime, which used to be downtown Long Beach, into this new, vibrant, exciting place. It's gone through a renaissance. And so that has been where you see the biggest kind of hit. You see that downtown and the surrounding communities have been very successful.
So the question becomes, given that crime has dropped, even though the numbers of officers have dropped, do you need to hire more officers? Maybe you don't. Maybe it shows that you can be mean and lean and still keep crime down.
Well, I think that there is still a need to responsibly grow the force. I think that just having looked at where we're at today, we will over the course of the next few years be growing the force by I think this next year we may see 5 to 10 more officers, somewhere in that range, and we'll continue to do that.
His name is Robert Garcia. He is Vice Mayor for Long Beach. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Shelly Luce. She is with the Santa Monica Bay Foundation, talking more about the environment. I'm Brad Pomerance. It is Charter California Edition. Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Dr. Shelly Luce. She is the Executive Director of the Bay Foundation, which is what?
The Bay Foundation is a nonprofit. We're located here in Los Angeles, and our focus is on cleaning up coastal waters. All of the ocean water that we all visit when we go to the beach in Los Angeles, and also the streams and rivers that flow to the ocean, because that's the fresh water that feeds our coastal zones.
And when you call the Bay, we're talking about the Santa Monica Bay, but the Santa Monica Bay is not just in Santa Monica.
That's true.
Give us a sense of what the Santa Monica Bay is.
Santa Monica Bay is a very large, very important body of water along our coast. It goes all the way from the Palos Verdes Peninsula up past Malibu, all the way to the Ventura County line is where we look at it.
Right.
And Santa Monica Bay has a lot of different cities along it, including Santa Monica, also a lot of Los Angeles, some of LA County, and the beach cities, as we call them, in the South Bay.
Long Beach, where we are today, for example. I want to talk about specific programs that you look to work through. For example, you have a kelp project. Tell us about the kelp project.
The kelp project is fantastic. Kelp is the seaweed that we're familiar with. It's growing off of our coast. It's very, very productive. It can grow very fast.
I understand, like an inch or two a day?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, crazy productive. More than that in a day, actually, in a good year and at a good time of year. And the kelp grows on rocky bottoms because that's what it holds on to. It has a hold fast. It can grow to be 100 feet tall, very thick stands of kelp, and very, very important for other fish populations.
Explain.
Fish need a habitat to live in, and here when we have rocky reefs and we have kelp growing, what we have is like a forest. So it has all the different elements that many different species of fish and shellfish like lobster and abalone, for example, need to survive. So when we have a healthy kelp forest, we have a robust population of a lot of other types of marine life that we're very interested in, including species that people like to eat, like sheephead and kelp bass.
In this bay, is the kelp at risk?
The kelp definitely has declined over many years.
Really?
Yes, and there are natural fluctuations in the amount of kelp that we normally have, but then there are human impacts on the kelp. For example, that water that runs off of the city of Los Angeles every time it rains carries pollution and fine sediments from our roads that makes the water cloudier, it blocks the sun, and it has a negative impact on the kelp forest. It can reduce the amount of kelp that's out there.
So what's the foundation doing on that front?
We have a program in which our scientists and collaborate with scientists from universities and other government agencies and with commercial fishermen to restore kelp forests on what are currently barren rocky reefs without any kelp at all. And the way we do it is we remove the overpopulation of the sea urchins that eat the kelp. So what we have right now is urchin barrens, these big expanses of rocky reefs covered in sea urchins. And sea urchins are those little pin cushions that you don't want to step on. Yeah. Well, sea urchins are an important part of the ecosystem, of course. They're a good source of food for lobster and for sea otters, for example, but we don't have many of those predators around anymore, unfortunately. So those sea urchins can have population explosions that cover the entire reef and eat all of the baby kelp before it has a chance to grow. So if we remove those sea urchins, the kelp comes back, and it does so robustly that other fish and predators like lobster and sheephead that eat the urchins can also come in, and then we have a more balanced ecosystem. Now we have kelp, we have predators like lobsters eating the right amount of sea urchins, so we have some sea urchins but not too many, and we have a more balanced ecosystem.
Can I tell you, I was recently in Catalina and we went snorkeling with my two daughters, and the kelp forests, as you describe, I mean, they are forests, like you said, and the life that swims through them, the colors that we saw, it was breathtaking.
It is beautiful. I'm so glad you got to do that in your daughters.
It was truly breathtaking. Oh, and they're 11 and 9. They were absolutely blown away.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, I mean, I get chills thinking about it because it's the first time they had seen anything like that. And we do so often forget that the world is 67% ocean, something like that. I mean, there's a whole other world out there.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a great example of it. And it's so close to our coastline, it's easy to get to. Even if you don't snorkel, you can kayak over the kelp forest. And we have very clear water on some days. You can see right down to the bottom. You can see the bright orange flashes of the Garibaldi fish.
Yes, that's what we saw. That's what we saw in Catalina.
You can see snails and other sea life that attach to the kelp.
I saw it's not called a stingray because it's larger. What is it called?
A bat ray or manta ray.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. We also are looking through the foundation to protect bird life. And there are six estuaries on the West Coast?
Well, there are a number of estuaries on the West Coast. There are 6 that are part of the National Estuary Program that the Bay Foundation is also part of.
Talk to us about that.
The National Estuary Program is, in my opinion, the most successful program that the federal EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, has to bring federal initiatives to the local level in a very collaborative way. The EPA is a regulatory agency. Its job is very important. I'm very supportive of it. But with its national estuary programs, it has the ability to put the regulatory hat, put the hammer aside, and to work collaboratively with state and local agencies. And they do that through us, the National Estuary Program.
So tell us what you're doing.
Well,
on this front,
I have the very wonderful job of getting about 35 people around the table every other month, and those people represent agencies that discharge sewage to our bay, that are responsible for that urban runoff that I mentioned that flows to the ocean when it rains, who are environmental groups, who are responsible for taking care of sand dunes and jetties, that's beaches and harbors, lots of different agencies all around the table, and we get together to come up with solutions to the problems that we are all facing. So we're working on things like wetlands restoration right now. We're working on the planning for the restoration of the Baiona wetlands, which is a 600-acre publicly owned parcel. Yes, right beside Playa Vista. It's an incredible opportunity here in dense Los Angeles. You know, our land prices are very high. The fact that the public owns 600 acres here on the coast is just incredible. It blows me away every time I think about it. And we have the opportunity here to bring back the functions of a real healthy wetland. There's some wetland there right now, and it does support some birds and other wildlife, but there's a whole other portion of this wetlands that's just not working.
What's happening with Baiona?
Well, the state agency that owns and operates the property is the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and they are leading the development of 7 different proposed plans. They will choose from one of those plans, the one that they feel will have the greatest positive impact on Baiona wetlands, and then they will put it out there in an EIR, an environmental document for the public to comment on, and then hopefully they'll approve and move forward with a really great restoration.
But we've been talking about this for so many years. Are we getting close?
We are getting close. We're closer than we've ever been, that's for sure. It took a while to get this process started. It's now been underway for about a year, just trying to develop this environmental document that describes the different options that we have at Baiona wetlands. And one of the reasons it's taking a long time is because it's a big piece of land that's had enormous impacts over the decades. It's been farmland. It's been a cesspool for LA's sewage many, many years ago before we had proper treatment plants. Excuse me.
Let me ask you, if I may, just because news recently broke that the governor declared a drought in the state of California, which is very significant news. What can you tell us about that drought declaration?
Well, we are in an extremely dry period, and it's following on a dry year that we had last year. So it's a very serious problem right now, and the good news is that LA is actually in okay shape. The rest of the state is going to have problems worse than us, and that's because the city of LA has a very good steward of its water resources in the Department of Water and Power. So we actually have...
That's a whole other conversation.
It's a steward of its water resources,
fair enough.
I said.
Fair enough.
In the Department of Water and Power. So we will be okay probably for this year, but we need to do a couple of things in LA and throughout the state. We need to conserve water better, which means not watering outside so much.
And second, in our final moments,
we need to rely more on our own local water supplies.
Her name is Shelly Luce. She is the Executive Director of the Bay Foundation. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thanks for watching Charter California Edition.